Okay, so thanks, guys. Thank you, Angelina, for honoring this invitation to be part of our community. Really, so this community is just a community of 50 Nigerians who have moved recently. I think in about 3 to 10 years. Well, sorry, 10 to 2 months. Some people are here from just about 2 months who have moved from Nigeria, and we have 50% medical doctors, I think about 30% pharmacists, and then 20 mix of life sciences, which I'm part of. And people find it very difficult integrating into the work system here, actually trying to get a job. So I call this out for everybody to be part of it, to see how you can help us situate ourselves properly to be part of what Canada has to offer. I mean, a lot of us came through the federal skilled workers scheme, which means that we already had years of experience and we have a lot to give Canada, but we don't know how to fit that plug in. And when I did speak with them that you are coming on board, they were all excited. And so we're happy to have you here. We're really happy to have you here. Thank you, Angelina.
You're welcome. So I can't make any promises with anything that transpires. All I can do is give you some guidance.
Right.
I'll just tell you a little bit about some of the things that I've been working on, which will hopefully lend itself to all of us securing positions, and not only just regular positions, but positions of power. And yeah, it gets tiring sometimes, as you know. So
I know.
I've been working for an organization called Brunel. It's a global staffing and recruitment agency. I'm located in Toronto, Ontario, and our head office is in the Netherlands. So we're a publicly traded entity. And I actually started the life science practice with Brunel 15 years ago. So I've been with the organization for 15 years. So it's been a hot minute for sure. And so what we do is we offer to our clients contracting solutions as well as permanent hires. So my responsibility is to go out into the marketplace, identify opportunities for Brunel, bring that back. And so I manage a team of recruiters as well. And then we go to market, we identify candidates, and we present the same to our clients. So our clients right now would be Sanofi, Adventis, Sanofi Pasteur, Cartage Enzyme. We've got Bayer, we've got Eli Lilly, we got Boehringer Ingelheim, Theratechnology. There's different companies that were involved.
Majorly pharma or a mix of biotech?
Mostly pharma, some device companies, and animal health. That's our primary focus. So looking at roles like PV, regulatory, quality, clinical, medical, that type of thing, right? There's if somebody's a medical doctor but they have their Canadian equivalent, there's times where we have opportunities for them as well. Outside of working, doing my day-to-day job, I'm also responsible for diversity, equity, and inclusion for North America. So I built a team and we've created strategies, vision, mission statements, ensuring that we have engagement with marginalized and racialized communities. So we would be considered under that group, right? Aboriginal, and you got the LGBTQ and whatnot. So we try to align ourselves with different organizations. The conversations about diversity, equity, and inclusion in pharma in Canada is really at its infancy stage. It's not really where it is in the US, because they're still on their journey. And in fact, I've only been on this journey since September of last year. And as you know, with the George Floyd and everything else that was happening, it became apparent to me that we needed to do something. And I went to my organization and I said, look, I'm seeing like Bristol Myers Squibb and some other organization, AbbVie in the States is commenting about Black Lives Matter and they're supporting them and yada, yada, yada. And we're having crickets right now. And then no news. And then I kept prodding. And then my president said, okay, Angelina, let's do something here. I hear what you're saying. So that's how that came about. Also, I'm giving you a lot of information, but I think it's necessary. I'm on the board for this organization called Women Leaders in Pharma.
Right.
So that's designed to empower women. So it's creating that gender parity. It's creating that gender equality for women. And so I said to one of the board members, again, we need to create a pillar of diversity and inclusion so that we can, at the beginning of our conversation, we talked about white women in the workforce and Black women feeling that they're not at the same level and things like that. So we're going to be having an event in June, and some of those discussions are going to be coming up. So for those women, and not to discriminate against men, joining an organization such as Women Leaders in Pharma will help you with your networking, right? And building those relationships. So networking isn't just about, sending emails, it's about making some kind of contribution. So we have a lot of volunteers, and through volunteering, what on a committee for WLP, what I've seen women blossom and empower each other and support each other. And they created like some coaching and mentoring. And if I'm a leader, let's say one of the board members, she works for Takeda, and I'm seeing that this person has really been making a contribution, then I'm going to remember that person. And that's where the really comes in, right? So for our purposes, we can discuss, you had some questions for me, and we were talking about the resume, and we're talking about how to network and things like that. So I could give you some suggestions.
Right.
And it's also important to say that through Women Leaders in Pharma, there was an event, and there was 4 other Black women at this event, and I've never seen that. So I've been doing this for 20 years, and I've never seen anybody else who really looked like me.
Wow.
So there was Corinne Buckman, there's Mez, there's Charlene Thompson, and a lawyer from Novartis, Federic, and Angelina Habamana. We saw each other at this event, and we said, without saying anything, I see you, I see you, I see you. So what we've done is we've joined this Black organization called Women of Color in Pharma. But then out of that, we said, well, we need to look at it from a Canadian lens. And we had a Black History event. And now what we're doing is we're trying to create a strategy where we can leverage our own people into environments. So there's an organization called Medicines of Canada, and it's an organization that supports all of the multinational pharmas, and all the GMs sit on there. And there's a woman there by the name of Marissa Poole. She works for Sanofi, and she's starting diversity committee. So Sanofi, for your information, is very heavily weighted on diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Right.
Gilead is, and Amgen is.
Okay.
So what these women and I are trying to do is we're trying to, and we're not there yet, but we're trying to create a strategy where we would be able to introduce a diverse, neurodiverse, all kinds of diversity characteristics to these organizations. And even through Brunel, which has their own recruitment processes related to diversity hiring and things like that. But what's important is that we want to ensure that people are prepped for when they go into a meeting.
Right.
But not only that, that there's somebody to walk with them on their journey while they're there. You just don't want to plop, hey, we've got this number in, we've got this person in. That's where failure happens, when there's no sponsorship within the organization.
Right.
Mentoring or coaching.
Right.
So it's a real journey for us right now, because we're not there yet.
Mm-hmm.
We're not there yet.
Right.
As far as your is this a particular organization? Have you guys called yourselves any names, or like what or just friends?
So what we have called ourselves right now are Nigerian clinical research professionals in Canada. So it actually has as well, people in pharmacovigilance, people in drug safety and regulatory. But we're all Nigerians who have recently migrated from Nigeria. So the basic thing that classifies you to be part of this group is that you're currently in Canada and that you are a Nigerian and you're ready to engage and be part of this, really.
Okay. Well, we're all Nigerian, whether we know it or not, right?
That's so funny.
Oh, okay, whatever. Yeah, so okay.
I mean, we've actually thought about, so because I have a Ghanaian colleague, we thought about expanding it, but we're not sure how to go about this yet.
Yeah.
In terms of understanding the struggles. Exactly. And then you have to make sure you're catering for everyone. And I think Nigerians right now, at least for me, I personally understand the struggle a whole lot more. So for now, we're just like, let's stick to this for now before we blow, get more inclusive. So.
Mm-hmm. So some of the strategies for networking, I would say is reaching out to, you have to be a little bold here.
Right.
Going on your LinkedIn profiles and look for those people in organizations that are focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion. So there are some people who have that title already. But
I see.
If there's anybody in the organizations that I don't know if any of you have friends in any of the organizations right now that you could speak to and say, is there anybody that's in your diversity, equity, and inclusion that I can speak to put forward my background. Eventually, what I'd like to do is just take everybody's resume and give it to Amgen and say, hey, I met these group of people, and I could just give you this information and you could leverage it. I could do that for you.
Fantastic.
That's not going to be a problem, but I wouldn't want to do it one by one.
Yeah, right.
Collectively or
like a lump, yeah.
Yes, so they can just reference it.
Right. That's a good idea, Angelina. In fact, we are actually having a resume workshop on Saturday because we also find out that, the way we write resumes in Nigeria is totally different from how we write resumes here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for example, we would put you were married or you're single.
Oh, no.
But then so we had to, the first time I sent you about 4 CVs, it was a lot of headache, me trying to screen through the CVs. So we decided to put together a workshop and we're going to be done with that on Saturday. And then, we can put our CVs together and send them to you all in a lump for your presentation. We really appreciate it because I think one of the things that is really like a challenge is, understanding how to, just break in that very first step. And, even when reaching out to people on LinkedIn, how do you compose yourself? How do you, you sell yourself, so to say, without being able to see the person? I think these are some of the challenges, the group, individuals in the group are facing.
Yeah, I could tell you what I say, but I think you need to tailor it to yourself. So if I'm doing a business development outreach, I would say to the person, hey, I always make it my intention to get to know who I'm connected with on LinkedIn, right?
Right.
A couple of minutes. In your case, I would say, I recognize that your organization is very, what's the word I'm trying to look for? Basically, that your organization is very pro diversity, equity, inclusion. So
right.
I would go into companies, I would look at their diversity, equity, and inclusion statements, and then I would reach out to the necessary persons, or even somebody in medical, somebody like a VP of medical, a VP of HR, VP of clinical, whoever it is.
Right.
And, I really appreciate your DEI statement on your website. I'm new to Canada, but make it very short. Don't make it long. It's don't forget, it's just a LinkedIn message, right?
Right.
I would love the opportunity to reach out to you. Do you have 5 minutes? And then you could say I could always set up a Teams meeting, but make it very short.
Sure.
Make it very sweet. And you know what? You might not get it's like even in staffing and recruitment, you could send out 100 out mails and then you would only get 3 responses, but at least you get 3. So you
Right.
have to be very tenacious and very diligent and do not feel defeated.
All right. Thank you for that.
Right.
So, Angelina, thank you so much on the back.
Or you can say, you know, are you comfortable with me sending you my resume? And the thing
Right.
with people in Canada, what you hear from the old guards is like, oh my God, you know, they don't understand the culture and we need somebody who's very fluid and agile. Well, you're like, yo, bro, I just left Africa and I came to Canada with my family, not knowing anybody. And I've done this and I've done this. You're trying to tell me I'm not agile? Are you kidding me right now? Right?
Yeah, that's a very good point. That's actually a very good point. And honestly, thank you for the background you gave us on diversity. Because it helps to find out that people are actually thinking about this now, and it's a good point to enter the industry. Some of the
Sorry for interjecting, but since, you know, this is Nigerian, my best friend, Kika Ojo, she is a big advocate for, she has her own business and she does consulting for diversity, equity, and inclusion. So
right.
if you Google her name, you're going to see a lot of.
Yeah, you told me about.
Yeah, she's amazing. Yeah.
Right. So some of the questions they've asked, you know, with regards to their CVs and, you know, what kind of format should you really be putting out there? How many pages, you know, what are your thoughts on the CV? Any specific fonts or sizes? So those are some of the questions we had from everyone on the group.
Yeah, like in terms of the font size and things like that, it doesn't really matter. I mean, you don't want anything too big or too small. Let's just put it that way. Right. And your CV or your resume should be no longer than 2 pages. You should always have your value proposition on there. So what makes Jennifer unique from Kenny? What is your value proposition? What are you going to bring to the table that nobody else can? And that's really what you need to identify on your resume. And that's not an easy thing to justify, right?
Right.
You know, is it something that you've been successful in and was unique to the organization where you previously worked before?
Right.
It's not just about bringing a new product to market, and it's not just about, you know, being a clinical monitor, but, you know, it's really about how you built those relationships at the site. Maybe there was a relationship with a PI that was a hot mess and you needed to, you know, like you're the best person to negotiate with this person, but what did you do that was so special? What can you, because that's what the employer, how are you going to help me? You're interviewing them as well, but they're really in a position of power because they're like, okay, how's Jennifer going to help me right now? What is she going to do for me?
Right. Very valid point. Thank you, Angelina. I think some people also wanted to find out what type of positions, you know, are we seeing in the market right now? I know that the whole industry, there's a whole lot of positions, but what are the regulars you're seeing, especially with the whole COVID vaccine trials going on? What kind of roles are you seeing right now?
Really and truly, it's the same as what I was seeing before. So maybe there's like in November, December, there seemed to be more involvement in regulatory. Sometimes it's just on the CMC. Now I'm seeing more emphasis on the clinical piece. There's a quality assurance. There's MSLs are in demand, of course, especially in oncology space. Pharmacovigilance. Yeah, so anything to do with medical, clinical, regulatory, quality. Are the hot spots right now. Digital transformation is huge. So if a company has paper-based, whatever it is that they're doing, like Sanofi, for instance, with their vaccines, they have a lot of processes that are paper-based, and they want to transform them now into digital. You know, whether that's, and then there's other organizations who are doing the same for the patient's experience, right?
Right.
All the digital transformation piece is huge. Roche does a lot of that as well.
Right. Thank you. Guys, if you still have more questions, feel free to drop, on the chat box. I'll be reviewing the chat box as we speak. So there's another thing. I don't know what your experience has been with people who have come in terms of immigrants. How receptive is the industry to the Nigerian space? I don't know if you've had interactions before, and how receptive is the industry to people who may have worked for US-based organizations before they came, before they migrated here?
Yeah, so I think that's more advantageous, but you and I had a conversation earlier, or
Right.
the last time we spoke, where there was an unfortunate incident, and I don't know where it stemmed from, but I was working with a CRO out of the US, and they said to me, Angelina, don't send me any more Nigerians. And I'm like, what the hell kind of conversation is that? Like, do you know who you're speaking to right now? And apparently there was some kind of, I don't know if there was a group of people that were applying to jobs and said they had the experience and they didn't, or if there was an educational institution that was training these people and they were not legitimate. But all I know at that time, which was about 4 years ago, maybe even longer, that was the narrative.
Right. So it's that CRO you talked about was in the US, correct?
Pardon me?
The CRO you just mentioned about was in the US.
And Canada. It was for both.
Oh, okay. The client you were working for was for the US and Canada.
Correct.
But what other general, I did share that information with the group. I told them, and funny enough, I did have a senior CRA from IQVIA who told me more details about that story. And I did share that with them that,
What was the additional details? Like what happened?
So the understanding I had, it was through IQVIA. There were quite a number of them who were recruited from a particular, was it like a college or something that wasn't pretty, they didn't do their homework properly. And there was a case that happened at work, and then they did some form of tracing, and they got all of them out of IQVIA.
Yeah.
That kind of, like you said, it was gone, but it still left a bad, stain, on the name, on Nigeria, so to say, on Nigerians in clinical research. And this is why there's a whole lot of more work in terms of, like, one of the things before you join this group, you have to have your GCP certification. I want to know that you at least understand the basics. I want to be sure that you're serious about this. And, we do have, a resourcing. We have a Google Drive where we put a lot of resources on it so that you can familiarize yourself with the up-to-date, information on ICH GCP. So there's a lot of that. And we do have, just like I said, we have resume classes. We also have training that we're going to be doing amongst ourselves. And this is pro bono. This is just challenging one another, referring one another to where you can get the up-to-date information. And if you have to go back to school or what you have to do, you need to do what you have to do to be on top of your game here. So we're really pro having the right skills for the role and being on top of your game in our group.
If you were able to package that for me, right, that would help me showcase the group,
right,
some of our potential clients, and I could say, hey, this is what is transpiring. These people are federally endorsed by the government.
Right.
These are some of the challenges that they're experiencing right now. So I could elaborate on that. But
right.
these are how we're mitigating some of the risk. We are ensuring that whoever joins this particular organization goes through some kind of training or whatever it is that you're saying there.
Right.
That will help me package the information, and I can say, okay, Marissa over at Sanofi, I've had a conversation. This is the profiles here. Are you open to having, like, I'm doing this pro bono because typically when we make a placement with a client, we receive 20% of that person's salary.
Right.
But I'm doing this pro bono and I'm saying, okay, Marissa, these are the individuals that I spoke with. Are you interested in having some kind of engagement
with them? Yeah. Thank you for that. I would package that like.
I'm putting myself on the line here because I could compromise my relationship. So whatever. I
understand that.
We've got to be, we want to make it look as best as we can. We don't just want to make it look pretty. We want the content to be
right. So, I mean, that's something we really take serious. And thank you, Angelina, for, for stretching this out, because I know it's out of your, purview. And you're really putting your relationship on the line, but it's something we are really serious about. You really need to know what you're doing to be part of this group. I don't just allow anyone into this group. I want to be sure that you're serious and you know what you're doing. So yeah, I did share that story with them, and there's a lot of eagerness. I see people working hard over the weekends to make sure they do their trainings, and I'm very impressed with that, which is why I was very glad to showcase them to you. So in what I think that the question really is if most of the experience they have is really based out of Nigeria, how can we confirm that? Because there are a lot, if we do a skill map, there are a lot of transferable skills that we've had based on experiences. So how receptive is the industry to that? How can we translate that to be embraced, even though it's a different place we've been at, but we've had similar occurrences, and we can share similar stories with, working here. Because I have worked here for 3 years, and I can tell you that the experiences that I've had are even probably less, because there's a lot of specialization of roles here. As a monitor back in Nigeria, I did way more. I was probably a project manager as well. I was speaking directly to the CSM. I was in charge of logistics. I was in charge of the laboratory, charge of equipment. So how do I, translate that, which is where the question really is.
Well, first of all, you worked for a global company, right?
Right.
And when you worked for a global company, did you work on, was it just local, or did you work with the global team on the local piece? What did that look like?
It was a global team for a regional section. So
Right. So what you need to articulate is that piece, is that you worked with a global team. So you aligned yourself with those in North America, you aligned yourself with those wherever it was around the world, right? Because you're speaking of your collaboration and your alignment with the different areas. I mean, the world is now, period, right?
Right.
So how you collaborate with individuals is what's imperative, because they're looking for the soft skills, right?
Exactly.
So when you're speaking with the client, as I said, you have to continuously endorse what your value proposition is. How are you going to help them? And not just give one-word answers or two-word answers. You have to give, so if you're a CRA or a project manager, you're going to talk about your ability to motivate and inspire people without having the authority over them, but give an example. Don't just say it. Give an example, two examples of what actually transpired. If they're asking you about conflict resolution, how did you resolve that conflict? But how is it now positive? Because conflict can be can result in an opportunity, right? So you need to turn that negative into a positive. Even if they're asking you what your weakness is, you always turn that weakness into a positive.
Correct. Thank you, Angelina. I have a very interesting question here. It says that it's from Jennifer, how important is it to streamline your interest to one role when you could be qualified for more than one?
Good question. Well, when you're applying for the position, you need to streamline it for that particular position. If you're applying for another job, then you're going to have to tailor that resume to that job. Because I'm telling you right now, it goes through, a client's database, and then the recruiter's looking at it, and they're looking at, what words are in the job description and they're matching it. They're not really reading between the lines.
Right,
And
right.
they're the first people to put their eyes on it, right?
Right. But does that also mean, so for example, if I've applied for a project coordinator role as well as a project manager role, and the reason why I'm doing that is because I am looking for a job, right? And you have my CV as a recruiter, you've seen the one for the project manager, and then the project coordinator role comes out and I have another CV that is quite tailored to that. How receptive is the recruiter to that? You know?
Not so much. Like I had a situation the other day where we had one of my recruiters had identified a medical science liaison and put it through. And then when I spoke with Deidre, who was managing the process at the client end, I said, so why didn't you proceed with this particular client? She seemed to have the candidate. She seemed to have the oncology background. She previously was an MSL. She goes, Angelina, this person just keeps applying and applying and applying and applying and applying. I guess it just doesn't resonate well. It just,
Right.
person seems desperate and like they've made no announcement and they're just throwing their resume everywhere. You have to be very intentional with what you're doing.
Right, right. And that's a difficult one though, you know, thinking about it, because I mean, there are times where you see that this is the only particular role this particular company has. You're probably more, you know, overqualified for it, but because you're looking for a job. I mean, I won't classify it as desperation, but you need a job. You have the skills to offer, and
Yeah.
you know, you've just moved here. So I don't know, I'm trying to merge how that works, you know, and how, I understand the part of being intentional.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, sometimes I may have to give 2 CVs in a day for that, say, for another role, really.
All I'm saying is that you don't want to keep sending your resume to the same organization multiple times. Like if you're going to apply for a position, move on to the next organization.
Right.
Don't be applying to 2, 3 positions at the same company, especially at the same time, even if it's not at the same time, because your information is already in the system.
I see.
And they're going to say that, you know, it's very ambiguous. It's very confusing. Does this person know what they want to do? Like,
right.
Yeah, it's about optics, right?
Yeah. And I think this leads me to a question. So some of the people here say 13 years experience and all that. How do you manage that with coming to Canada now? Do you don't necessarily want to get a role that is not based on your level. So I know some of the people on our team now have been, so in terms of medical sales, they have been like district managers and all that. But coming to Canada, you know, there's always this advice, you start from small and all that. How do they manage 13 years of work experience applying for a associate role or a very low position? How do you advise us to approach that? Because they probably would qualify more for a lead or I'm not sure, depending on, you know, what terminologies are used. They probably will qualify for that, but they're not sure because they don't have Canadian experience. I mean, I'd really love you to address this aspect that we face.
So say, for instance, you are a district manager back home and now you come to Canada and you want to be a salesperson, like a sales rep, right?
Right.
I would still maintain that I've been a district manager back home. I wouldn't change the title of my position or anything like that.
Right.
I would just leave it.
Right. And with the number of years, throw off the recruiter from giving me a look, because I'm like, this person has a lot of years of experience.
I don't like putting the number of years experience. I don't.
Okay.
I mean, it's right on your resume anyways, right? So they can figure it out. I don't think you need, oh, I've got 20 years experience doing this. Nah.
Right.
Because they might just, you know, oh, that person's too senior or whatever.
All right.
They'll, they'll,
Right.
they'll see the tenure just based on your resume. Yeah,
Right. Right.
not necessary.
Okay.
And then if you're like somebody who's younger in their career, then, just leverage some of the things you may have done in university, whether it's mentoring or coaching or any of that kind of stuff. Always extract things that are going to be applicable.
Right. Right. Thank you for that. I was just going to go on to Alex's question, who's fresh out of school, and he says, do you mind expanding on the challenges of a person of color faces in the industry today and advice to how to overcome them?
Again, it's just being really proactive, and it's reaching out to people and establishing your network. Like what I'm prepared to do this for you. Maybe somebody else who I pass it off to may be prepared to do something for you, but you really need to be diligent and reach out to people on LinkedIn, have as many conversations. If you see somebody else who's Nigerian, for instance, who's working in another organization, so like Wandi, you guys know Wandi, right?
Yeah.
Artists, reach out to Wandi and say, could you help me navigate myself through Novartis? Like what kind of suggestions would you have for me? Is there anybody that I should be speaking to? Things like that. So really try and leverage the relationships that you may have, like somebody you went to the same school or lived in the same city as you, or they really understand the pain points, right? And hopefully they want to help you.
Right.
But continue to reach out to people that you don't know. Just be bold and brave, and like a little snippet in the LinkedIn messaging. You're going to have to probably get a premium account or something like that, because there's the amount of messages you can
send. Right.
Or even just asking somebody, the head of medical affairs, just sending them a note saying, I'm new to Canada. I'm really, this is what I did back home, and I'm really interested in getting into the marketplace in Canada. Do you have 10 minutes to speak with me?
Right.
DE&I is very much on the forefront of a lot of people's mind, and I think now is the time to capitalize on that.
Right. Thank you. Kenny asks if we can have more info on the June event. I think you can send me more details on LinkedIn and I can share with the group.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, hi Angelina. How do you think the industry will be different in a few years, and what skills should we develop further for the future? Interesting question.
Yeah, well, it's funny because I was doing some planning for work, and it's really strange because I was reading about AI and the impact it's going to have in our industry. So we talked about transformational things that we're doing in digital, but also even clinical trials. They're saying that moving forward, I don't know if it's 10 years from now or whatever, but they're not going to be conducting trials on humans. They're going to be doing it on robots. And of course, they could do phase 1, 2, and 3 and 4 in a couple of minutes, as opposed to years, right?
Right.
So definitely AI, blockchain, all that kind of stuff is going to be instrumental. Companies are very patient focused right now, so patient support programs. I think, coming out of COVID, it's going to be even more critical to have that wellness piece.
Right. Thank you. Mm-hmm. How receptive are CROs in the US to employing someone who is based in Canada, especially now that most positions are remote?
Yeah, I haven't really experienced too much of that, to be honest. I could ask and get back to you. Yeah, I haven't really seen a lot of that right now. We are seeing a shift where, working remotely for global companies are becoming more and more prevalent, I guess.
Yeah.
Somebody I know who just recently got hired by, it's not a client of ours, by Deloitte and Touche, and it's 100% remote, and then they're getting paid in US dollars. So
Interesting.
I would not exclude, if somebody does risk-based monitoring, or monitoring, I would definitely encourage them to apply. Why not?
So from my experience, sometimes the sites for I have only worked for US. Actually, I have never actually worked for companies in Canada, and I have been present in Canada. But what I found out is that there has to be some form of like tax agreement, correct me if I'm wrong, between the company and Canada, so they can actually, you know, release their jobs to us, because I found out that there's so many that pop up on my LinkedIn. I think I have a lot of recruiters on my LinkedIn feed. I'm like, okay, but do you have for Canada? Do you have for Canada? Do you have for Canada? And like, oh, I'm not too sure. Let me check, you know. And like you said, if there's a company that actually has an agreement here, they may open up the road to Canada. But we found out that there's a whole lot of more jobs out there in the US. Is there anything being done to, you know, encourage, like, could you take some of the Canadian workforce? Because we have more people, well, we don't have more people here, but we have more upcoming people here, right? And there's so many jobs. Is there something that we can suggest, or, you know, how can we table this globally to say, do you want to mop up some skills from Canada?
So are you asking me what you would say to an American company to utilize Canadian talent? Is that what you're asking?
I'm saying, is that something we can actually table? Is that acceptable in terms of, I'm trying to wonder what that is for Canada as well, what that means for Canada. Do you see what I mean? Is this something that is acceptable if we're actually pitching that in our workplaces, that do you want to take more Canadian staff on board because now the roles are remote?
Trying to see if I'm understanding your question.
So what I'm trying to say is there's actually more jobs there, there are more clinical trial sites, and now everything is remote. Is it something that we should actually pitch to some organizations in the US to say?
Oh, I see. Yeah. Why not? I mean, it's going to be, as long as they have the system set up, because you're still going to have to pay your Canadian taxes, and that's
right.
So from a logistics perspective, if they've got everything in order, then yes.
Right.
Yeah. There's a lot of companies that pay US dollars to Canadians, but you have to make sure that they're withdrawing the burdens, right? Because you have to pay the federal, the provincial, all those taxes.
Right.
Unless you're set up as an incorporation, of course you're going to speak with your accountant, and then you would pay everything on your own later on. So do it two ways: set up an incorporation, or that company will pay you as an employee, and then they take all the deductions away.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yeah, it does. Okay. I think I had one or two questions left that I sent you.
Let me just see. I perused it, but I didn't.
What importance of a diverse clinical trial workforce? What, I know you're championing for this. What do you usually?
Yeah, the championing really is on the patient side, right? Because a lot of the people they utilize, they don't look like us, and so you know, we're at a disadvantage. That's really where the discrepancy is. Well, it's all over, but that's one of the conversations, is that there's not enough representation. I mean, there's the intention from the pharmaceutical company, but there's also social determinants of health from our side, that we don't participate in things, or we don't want to go to a doctor who doesn't look like us. Like, there's all this kind of hard enough getting people to get the vaccine right now, right?
Right. The government of Ohio, announced there was going to be a draw of $1 million for those who have taken their vaccines. And I said, maybe Doug Ford should try that, and get everyone
he's making his own money because you know those little stickers in the mall that's on the floor. Right? That's his company, right? So he's monetizing on it. Trust
Oh
me.
my, yeah. So anybody else has any question just before we say goodbye? Do you want to explain and change it, streamline your trust in one? Most of the CROs in the US employing. What do you think? Being overqualified. Oh yeah, I think we're still back on this being overqualified for a role. I think there are two different things. Would recruiters take someone? I mean, first of all, we're going to take off I have over 20 years of experience in research, but would recruiters still reach out and accept someone who you can see from the dates that the person has been working, but the person just moved? Would recruiters be open to still accept that person for some roles that are, a foot in the door kind of roles?
We would, our organization would. I can't really speak for a lot of other organizations. There's another agency, you guys heard of it? It's called, let me see if I get it now. And I don't know what it's called, hold on. Hold on a second, okay?
Sure.
Healthcare, but it's called BIPOC Executive Search. I think
BIPOX?
BIP, so it's Black Indigenous People of Color. It's called BIPOC Executive Search. It's actually, I think it's a spin-off from Black North.
Oh, I see.
Right? So I haven't got on their website or anything like that. And I don't really know anybody in that particular organization, but they might have something there. Right. You might want to, speak with them as well.
Okay. And is there a comprehensive list of sponsors in Ontario that you can help us with? In the medical clinical area, like pharma and biotechs, is there like a comprehensive list where we can get all the companies under the pharma industry? You
mean just look under their names, the list of names?
The list of companies, yes.
I don't know, maybe look under Innovative Medicines of Canada. They list all of the companies that's part of their association. Brunel is, of course.
Innovative Medicines of Canada.
Yeah, and there's another one called HB. Hold on a second. I don't know. I'll have to look up the other one for you because there's another one for the biotechnology company.
Right.
Yeah. And of course, there's that Women's Leaders of Pharma, what I was telling you about.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got the names for the Women Leader of Pharma, and I know you talked about WOSIP as well. Yeah. And the event in June, which will get
there's another program that I mentor and coach. It's called Access Employment.
Okay.
Run by Margot Chan. I'll send you her name.
Okay.
To see if you guys can have a conversation, but it's called ACCES Employment.
Right.
And what they do is they find opportunities for people who are new to Canada.
Right.
So they have like workshop events and things like that. So maybe go on their site, and then if you want, I can introduce you to Margot and see if there's any synergies there.
Margot.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's think I have one more. No. Okay, I think That is it. Thank you so much, Angelina, for your time and sharing your wealth of experience. I know that this is a whole lot for you in terms of your time to DNI community, but honestly, really appreciate this. We do hope to work with Brunel. I mean, if I will definitely try to make sure we get our CV sorted by next week and send it over to you, and make sure that everybody I'm sending to you is personally vetted.
Even if it's something like a link to something and I could say, okay, Marissa, just go here and you could see all the resumes as opposed to like having them all.
Oh, okay. Uploaded resumes. That will work.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. Instead of getting everybody to, I'll just upload them in a cloud and get a link and then send it all. That works.
Yeah.
That really works.
You know, like my schedule is really, really busy, but you know, if a couple of people, they want to do some, if they secure an interview and they want to do a prep, then I can help them with the prep. I can't help everybody because, you know, but at least if I help a couple,
oh, that is so,
then that couple can help somebody else. You know what I mean?
You're right. That is so helpful, Angelina. Thank you so much for that. We'll definitely take the offer. Yeah, once we, you know, get more people on board. Some of them are still in school trying to go to, like, you know, get some, I think CRA School of Montreal, Humber and all that, but definitely we'll take on your offer. Thank you so much for that. Okay. Any more questions, any goodbyes? You can put on your mic, just say something, want to say thank you or whatever.
I'll be saying Jennifer, Femi, what's the lady with
videos, please, just to say at least hi.
Aditutu. Nice name. I think Lala Swan. Frank. Hey, Frank. And then
thank you, Angelina. We really enjoyed your session.
You're welcome. Look at those glasses.
Very encouraging.
Wow.
Thank you so much, Angelina.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Amazing. Angelina.
You're welcome, Kenny.
Thank you so much.